If you'd asked me 6 months ago if I was excited to play Sony's open world zombie romp Days Gone, I would have confidently told you, not really. In my mind, Sony had already put a bullet through the head of the zombie genre by perfecting it with The Last of Us. It's a mature, grounded story with a melancholic beauty that elegantly shifts into action and hyper-violence. When it launched, it didn't just take a tired, overbaked genre forwards, it packaged up all of the expected tropes and dragged them kicking and screaming into a new era. Hell, there's even a sequel on its way, so why would you want to put a dog in this fight? By comparison, Days Gone initially looks like a step back down the evolutionary ladder in terms of both gameplay and lead character design. However, after heading to a press demo and getting my hands on an early build of the game, I came away thinking that there may still be a bit of fuel left in the old zombie survival tank. So if you two are a skeptic, here's how my experience with the press demo for Days Gone made my malaise gone. Now, quick disclaimer, I wasn't able to actually capture my own footage at the event, so everything you're seeing is supplied B-roll set roughly in the same portion of the game that I played. 2 years have passed since some sort of viral pandemic, and now the world is in ruin. In rolls our grizzled main character, Deacon, a man who has mastered the complexities of riding a motorcycle, yet astoundingly doesn't understand which way hats are meant to be worn. He's out easy riding it with his best biker buddy Boozer, a man who was so confounded by hats that he just gave up entirely and tattooed the top of his head. The demo plonked me into the saddle and I took off down a linear section of road peppered with expositional dialogue and a few small on-foot sections that served as basic tutorials. Straight away, I wasn't completely sold on the bike, with its floaty handling and kind of underwhelming top speed. Hitting a boost button gave the hog a short burst, but being a narrative section of the game, it didn't really serve much use. And before long, I was back on foot tracking enemies using a Batman-like detective vision, or clearing blocked sections of road that inevitably ended with me being ambushed. This, however, was the perfect chance to get to grips with the game's combat systems. Throwing down fisticuffs feels appropriately biker brawly, and without a clear lock-on mechanic, fights come off looking and feeling far more improvised and cinematic. These aren't cutscenes, however, and the right timing is still required to successfully counter or pull off brutal executions. Gunplay, on the other hand, feels as stock standard as in any third-person action game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Considering scarcity of ammo and noise play a large part overall, keeping this stuff simple feels like the right choice in a game that encourages you to improvise from time to time. This became particularly apparent after moving into a more open area of the map that required fetching a bike part from a local mechanic. This was not only a taste of a less linear section of the game, but also my first proper run-in with Freakers, the game's take on zombies. And while it's certainly not going to win any awards for originality, Days Gone's take on the infected at least adds a couple of variants to keep the horde from becoming too hoardy. The most interesting and honestly disturbing one of these I encountered were newts, small childlike infected that would scuttle away afraid, only attacking when in larger numbers or when I was low on health. Feeling far more I Am Legend than Walking Dead, the regular infected move quickly and often in groups, making stealth and melee the obvious choice. And fortunately, there's a very generous window of opportunity to stealth kill, even allowing you to rush the last few feet to unaware enemies for an instant kill. The rest of my time in this area was spent foraging for parts to craft with, which gave off some serious Tomb Raider reboot vibes. Constructing things like homemade silencers or more vital gear like bandages and throwables. Molotovs in particular seemed the most useful for clearing out nests that would lower the zombies' threat level in the area. Limiting these resources made scavenging through small areas like this not only satisfying, but necessary, which is a crucial element when it comes to end-of-the-world building. After completing the story objective, a somewhat zealous faction known as the Rippers made an appearance, bringing into question how many other enemy types the game might have in store further down the road. The final section of the demo involved a heavily story-laden flashback to flesh out the bittersweet love story. It's not exactly a subtle way to force in more exposition, but I have to admit, seeing a fresh-faced, content Deacon riding through a yet-to-be-spoiled wilderness did twang a small thread of connection to his story that I didn't expect to have after only a couple of hours. The idiot still wears his hat backwards though. Then I jumped forward again into what appeared to be the entire world map to quickly soak in as much of this apocalyptic playground as possible, which turns out is a pretty big playground. Even though the game had been touted as open world right from the get-go, I hadn't seen much evidence that it would give me a sense of freedom outside of a few wider set pieces. But after riding out from the safe house, I was surprised to see that the training wheels had literally come off and I was free to head off in whatever direction looked the least threatening. This boiled down to choosing between attacking heavily armoured enemy outposts, questing at allied camps, or clearing abandoned towns of large populations of freakers. The latter being the most interesting in that apparently hordes will migrate between areas until you lower their populations, something I may have been geared up to handle, but my personal skill level was certainly not ready for. Speaking of skills, upgrade points customize Deacon's abilities to suit your playstyle. Channeling mine into Focus Fire let Deacon momentarily enter the Matrix for some old 90s bullet time. Too video gamey? Yeah, maybe, but the further I played, the more I noticed that Days Gone seemed to be totally okay swinging back and forth between deadly serious dramatic cutscene and fun and rewarding gameplay loop. And by the end of my time with the demo, I'd seen that the game could more than confidently ride that line. So if you ask me now if I'm excited to play Sony's open world zombie romp Days Gone, I will confidently say, yeah, kind of. The game is leaning hard on aged tropes and game design I thought I was done with, and the setting isn't anything I haven't seen 100 times before. But the overall polish and ambition of this world is undeniably enticing. And assuming the final release will affix the orientation of Deacon's hat, well then I'm cautiously optimistic to lose more than a few days to this game soon.